first high-level strategic plan. That then went out for even wider public and staff engagement, including on citizens-based, face-to-face sessions. And that whole process led to the development of the final plan that you see before you. The plan was approved by both Clackmannanshire and Stirling IGB and Falkirk IGB last year. But given the importance of the issues and the fact that a multi-agency approach was needed, it was agreed that it would be tabled for noting at NHS Forth Valley Board and all 3 local authorities, just to ensure visibility of that. As I say, it's a very comprehensive plan. I just want to highlight a few key issues about it today. I think one of the absolutely key issues about the plan is the importance of embedding trauma awareness, trauma-informed approaches, and access to specialist support and intervention for people experiencing complex trauma. We really wanted to make the point that it's not an either or. We need that whole spectrum of approaches to trauma embedded within the plan. Another key point about it is the importance of a whole system approach. You'll see that the plan is structured around 3 key pillars of prevent, promote and provide. So the prevent pillar is about a focus on tackling the root causes of poor mental health and wellbeing and health inequalities. The promote is about promoting positive mental health and wellbeing, free from stigma and discrimination. And the provide pillar is about people being able to confidently access mental health and wellbeing supports when they need them for as long as necessary. And one of the key points about this is that only the 3rd pillar, provide, is about the actual provision of services. 2/3 of this plan is about broader community level approaches, which is really what we need in order to meet the level of demand that we have for mental health and wellbeing. The final point I'd like to highlight is the importance of a delivery plan and measurable outcomes. As with all plans, it's only really as good as what you actually then move on to do with it. And that is absolutely key. Nothing changes without implementation. We know that mental health and wellbeing are significant issues in Forth Valley. Anxiety and depression are in the top 4 causes of poor health in Clacks, Falkirk and Stirling. And we know that Clackmannanshire faces the greatest challenge of them all, with higher levels of anxiety, higher levels of depression, higher levels of substance use. So the implementation is absolutely key. And that's the phase that we want to move on to next. So I think that's probably all I'll highlight today, but Chair, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Rennie, then Councillor Holden.
Thanks so much, Jennifer, and I completely acknowledge all the work you've done with me on this. That's very much appreciated. So I don't have many questions, but just I just wanted to draw out, rather than it be a sort of full-on question, just that a lot of the implementation side and the kind of the dialogue with the community about that's already taken place. So I just wanted to say, is that the case that we're at that stage just now?
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, our implementation has been slightly affected by the changes in management within the Clacks and Stirling Integration Joint Board, because the plan in the agreement was that it would be the Chief Officer who would take forward the implementation, supported by the Director of Mental Health and Learning Disabilities. And unfortunately, the Chief Officer then changed and has become myself as the Interim Chief Officer, who was previously the Director of Mental Health and Learning Disabilities. So we have a bit of a gap there. I am, however, have now managed to agree an interim recruitment process to bring in an interim Director of Mental Health and Learning Disabilities. And once that is complete, that will then allow us to take this forward. So thank you.
Councillor Holden, and then Councillor McTaggart.
Thanks, Deputy Convener. I just want to ask a question regarding the recommendation itself that we're noting the Forth Valley Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategic Plan. And I bring your attention to the section 1.19, it's tabled for noting NHS Forth Valley, Clackmannanshire, Stirling and Falkirk councils. So it's been approved and it's submitted here. My question is around accountability. What happens if the council doesn't agree to the strategic plan? Because the strategic plan will have an impact in terms of resource. And obviously the council then argue by agreeing the strategic plan, could be agreeing in principle to the resource and level that's required in order to fund that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And just for clarity, there is no requirement within the plan for additional resources. That's not what the plan says. It's about delivering within the existing resource envelope that we've got, because we're aware that we can't. We're not within this plan making the case for additional resources. Some of the services that will be involved in delivering the services that are delegated to the Health and Social Care Partnership. So the expectation is that those services will be delivering that. There are also issues around about commissioning, where again, as Councillor Rooney has already highlighted, we'll absolutely be engaging with our community planning partnerships round about that. So our intention would be to use the existing structures that we have, but there is no ask or requirement within this for any of the partners involved to commit additional resources. That would be beyond the scope of this.
Just ask another question. So, and my apologies, I can't recall what the document was called in terms of the agreement to establish it and its relationship, as it was outlined between the health board and obviously and its constituent partners such as local authority. Sorry?
Integration scheme.
Right, the integration scheme. Does the integration scheme refer at all to the role that the local authorities and the health board should play in terms of approval of the strategic plan, but whether or not the strategic plan can proceed on the basis that the local authority declined to approve of it?
It's okay, I'll take it. So in terms of governance on this, this is an example of the IJB fulfilling its role in the strategic policy setting space. So, of course, when you've got delivery through the Health and Social Care Partnership, which Jen's referred to, we need to be part of that process, but the direction is actually set at the IJB level in terms of the actual strategy. So they're the owner, if you like, of agreeing the strategy. But you wouldn't want to take that forward without proper engagement with the constituent partners, which is what this process is intended to be part of.
Councillor, Councillor McTaggart and then Councillor Law.
Thanks, Chair. You spoke about the implementation and that this will be starting relatively soon. How will this be prioritised? For example, how will people's stage of mental health, let's say, be prioritised, or their incapacities be prioritised? I would imagine that it's not going to be, there's going to be different levels in need for this. So how do we decide who gets the first tranche of this work, or how, and who determines who is in most need?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. So within the plan, we've kind of laid out what we think are the things we can do within the first couple of years, and then the medium term, and then the longer term. And I think what it's about for us is the plan is an attempt to help us do that. It's to help us prioritise what the key areas are, and within each of the pillars, if you like, the prevent, the promote, the provide, we've kind of pulled out some of the things that we want to do that we think we can do more quickly. We are, as you're saying, we are in a time of resource limitations, so that does require us to prioritise. But what we need to make sure is we do that fairly and equitably and transparently, which again comes back to the point of making sure we're involving our community planning partners, our third sector partners, our the groups of people with lived experience and our carers groups as part of that to help us do that. And so I think it would have to be a whole multi-agency approach in line with the priorities laid out in the plan.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I get what you've just said, and you also said that Clackmannanshire has a particularly high level of people in need of this type of support. So my question, I suppose, is, as this is a 10-year plan, when will we actually be able to see delivery and be able to identify outcomes to that delivery and how it's actually going to work for every individual who desperately needs that help?
Yes, I agree with that. And that's actually one of the key things, that once we have our Director of Mental Health and Learning Disabilities in post and we can start moving towards this, the first task is to have a concrete implementation plan with concrete outcomes within that. And then the intention would be that we would be reporting back on that at regular intervals, just so that we can demonstrate exactly, as you say, the real-time impact, so the real-life impact of that. So that is absolutely central to this. And I would be very happy to agree what sort of reporting schedule that you would want around about that to give that level of assurance.
Thanks. That's it.
Okay, Councillor Law. Go ahead.
Thanks. Obviously, I'm a member of the IGB, and I was there yesterday and we were discussing the finances. So that's kind of my key issue, is that it's the strategy. It's really good. It's that delivery plan. I know you've mentioned about the resources. I'm not asking for more resources. However, the HSCP as a whole is considerably overspent. Will we be able to deliver what's in here and making sure that we're sticking to the finances so that it is deliverable and also not setting people's expectations, because I feel that maybe with this strategic plan, the expectations will be very high. I'm not sure financially we will be able to deliver. Do you agree?
Yes, I think it's a challenge. I think it is a challenge. And again, I think that's so important that we've got a strategic plan, because it is about helping us to prioritise, and it's about helping us to target the support where we need it, where it's needed most. As I say, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is going to be easy, because it's not. It is a challenge, but I do think this gives us a bit of a blueprint for where we're going to try and prioritise that. As you say, the financial position of the partnership is challenging, and we have to look across all areas, but we also, as we were discussing yesterday, absolutely have a commitment to protecting and prioritising key frontline services, and that includes mental health and wellbeing.
Thank you. Councillor Benny, Martha.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'm also an IGB, so we're both guilty here. But I'll stay away from that side of it for the moment. I'm thinking more about the flexibility of the system, because obviously mental health is one of those things where if people are not sure of what's happening, they would go away and not do anything. So how flexible can we be about that once it's actually starting to be implemented?
Yes, I think you're right. We have to make sure that our system is flexible and able to respond to people's needs at that time. And actually, one of the things that came through a lot of our consultation and engagement was exactly that people would try and think something's not correct, try and get help, but feel they've maybe gone to the wrong place or in the wrong way. And that's one of the things that absolutely came through. We really had to embed the whole no wrong door approach. We really had to make sure that we had embedded within our communities the information about how to access the right things about what's out there, and making sure that our signposting and information is as good as it can be. So that is absolutely in the plan, and something we do need to work on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Any further questions? No. So to move the paper, Councillor Law.
Thank you. As Jennifer said, I'm not going to go into the plan. It's quite extensive. I would say it's very welcomed, but I would just echo kind of the comments that I made in my question, and is that kind of the key is that delivery, and within the financial constraints that we find ourselves in the IGB and the Health and Social Care Partnership, and how we are able to provide these services. So yeah, I'd just say welcome the paper. I have done it, the IGB and the NHS board, and here now. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lindsay. Graham.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, this is obviously an area of huge importance to Clackmannanshire, if not one of the highest, if not the highest priority that we have, the health and well-being of our people. The Clackmannanshire context has been noted a few times, and I suppose one of the risks that we have here in terms of the Forth Valley context is that we sometimes, could be missed in terms of making sure that we're widening access for people who need it most, as we've outlined. So I'm sure that will be the case, and I'm reassured by Jennifer's comments just in terms of how we approach, I suppose, the performance management of this going forward, in terms of the outcomes that we're hoping to see and achieve. Our Clackmannanshire context is pretty stark. It's improving. There's an improving picture, but it is pretty stark, and we've had, really high levels of, all the range of mental health conditions, anxiety, depressions, suicides, particularly male suicides, where we're disproportionately high in that particular area. So these are all areas that we want to see, real improvement. Within the other risk that we've outlined as well, as Councillor Laws highlighted, is that financial context as well. And again, there are benefits to working as a Forth Valley, but we know the challenging financial context around that as well. I think a couple of the key things for me is that collaboration. again, reassured to see the collaboration that's happening. Lorraine, Sandra and I have spoken a lot about this particular area, particularly in an education context as well, where quite often there's actually lots of supports and lots of pots available, but sometimes, partners haven't been talking to each other. That's changed, I think, over recent years. I think it's really improved, and some of the transformation work we've done has really improved that as well. And hopefully that kind of journey continues with the mental health and wellbeing strategy going forward, that we do think about how we collaborate. Third sector is key in that as well. And so reassured in terms of the work and in terms of the consultation that's went around this as well. So yeah, high need, really high need here. We will obviously keep a close eye on this going forward, and I look forward just to seeing those reporting mechanisms going forward. And thanks for agreeing to report on it regularly as we feel we need as well. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Graham. Any further comments, Councillor Rennie, Janine?
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, I really appreciated the engagement on this. It's been a struggle for me because we don't sort of veer off into operational areas and stay in our strategic box. So it's been a bit of a challenge on that. But obviously I worked in the mental health field for 15 years and delivered a lot of what was to be delivered. And actually, just what Graham's kind of referred to there, saw the high level. I don't know how many times I had to phone GPs with people with suicidal ideation. We had thousands of clients every year who were coming through, and really complex and significant needs in Clackmannanshire. And actually, out of the 3 local authority areas, Clackmannanshire was my highest. And it was certainly my highest in levels of trauma. So trauma is really significant within the Clackmannanshire area, and it's something that really needs to be addressed. So when I first saw the plan, I thought, oh dear, where's this, where's that? And, all my kind of alarm bells went up. But Jennifer's been brilliant, met with me, her and Joanna, and in terms of reassuring me that a lot of that will happen in the implementation stage, the actual how it's going to work. And actually, from a cost perspective, it reassured me and alleviated my concerns as well, because it's about how we do things differently. And I've been to 3, I think it is, of the engagement events, or is it 2? I've been to the engagement events following up from this, and actually seeing the amount of third sector input into that and community planning partners is really exciting, because a lot of this can be delivered in the sort of strategies that Lorraine's been using in terms of let's engage with our third sector partners, let's engage with the communities, because the level of work and depth of work that's happening in Clackmannanshire community is really tangible. And I think the more that we engage with that, the more we'll actually reduce costs, because I did a very quick cost-benefit analysis when I worked in the field, and one level of intense psychological therapies costs 10 times as much as a third sector intervention. So by looking at things in a different way, it means we'll actually be able to do things in a more cost-effective way without lowering standards. So I think that's really important. So I'm really glad to see this and was happy to approve it with the follow-up work that's actually happening, and we'll be keeping a close brief on that without becoming an operational person. I'll slap myself in the hand if I try and do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Janine. Any further comments, Councillor McTaggart?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. I agree totally with the statements that Janine's just made about the third sector, but I think we have to understand that the third sector don't run on fresh air. So there will be funding needs for the third sector if we have a heavier reliance on them to deliver services in communities. And I agree that the third sector groups are closer to communities. They understand the needs of communities, and they're more likely, people are more likely to approach a third sector group than they are to approach us or to approach a health professional. However, as I say, they don't run on thin air, so we have to consider any pressures that we're putting on the third sector groups that we're hoping to partner through this strategy, and make sure that it doesn't create a fragility about them that we're placing too much pressure on them without the funds to go along with it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jane. Any further comments? No. Fiona, Councillor Lodge, do you want to sum up?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for their comments. I would say that as I was at the IGB yesterday, and obviously Jennifer's there. She's taken up her interim post, and we've also got the interim chief financial officer. So it was, I don't know how to describe it. I felt very positive for considering how challenging situation what was coming forward, and it was expressed by the financial officer in regards to the third sector and the positive things that they bring, but also that the financial need to make sure that they're okay. So that is getting looked at. So I wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. So that's taken as duly noted, the strategy paper. Thank you. Moving on then to item 10, HR policies. We've got the work-life balance and flexible working policy and also the carers policy. How I intend to take this is take each policy in turn of the two policies so that we'll do the normal process of questions and debate and approval. And Alistair, our Senior Manager HR, is going to talk to the paper. Alistair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of Council. The paper presented today asks Council to challenge, comment and ultimately agree to revised HR policies, these being the work-life balance and flexible working policy and the carers policy and procedure. Both these existing policies have been reviewed as part of the rolling programme of review and updates to the Council's comprehensive suite of HR policies and procedures. With regards to the work-life balance and the flexible working policy, this strengthens the Council's commitment to flexible working and fully supports the move to modern ways of working, which provide greater opportunities to support our staff, whilst also balancing the needs of our services and our communities. Allied to this is the Council's carers policy, which encourages and cements a positive culture in our workplace where we support carers and recognise the demands this can bring with balancing work and caring responsibilities. In considering these policies today, Council may wish to note that both were considered by the Council's policy group and tripartite group in conjunction with recognised trade unions, with no areas of disagreement or challenge noted. I am happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
So what said we're going to deal with flexible working policy first in terms of work-life balance. So Scott, what's the questions?
Yeah, thanks, Vice. The question actually relates to both of them, Alistair. Do you benchmark externally against private companies as well? Because they're actually very similar to policies that I've seen in the private sector.
So we wouldn't benchmark across private sector, but we do frequently benchmark across other Scottish local authorities to ensure that there's a level of consistency in approach.
Do you ever think about looking externally to private? Because as I say, it is very, very similar to ones that I've seen, not exactly the same and probably slightly different durations for some of the things, but as I say, very, very similar. So, do you ever consider looking at what happens in the private sector for these kind of things?
So we would certainly look at trends across the HR and the employment sector. We wouldn't specifically go and research, but if we do see trends that are starting to arise across those three themes with either carers' responsibilities, work-life balance or other HR issues, we would take those into consideration. But as I say, the standard for us is to go with other Scottish local authorities, maybe wider or go wider there with going to COSLA as well to ensure that there is a degree of consistency in what we are doing.
Thanks.
Janine, Councillor Rennie.
Thanks very much, Chair. Alistair, on page 291, 7.3, it states managers should take into account that the council is under no statutory obligation to grant a request to work flexibly. I wondered if that maybe would make managers think twice rather than think positively towards offering it, because obviously flexible working and work-life balance is extremely important. And I just wondered what sort of help and advice managers are given in these circumstances as to employee wellbeing and where they should be taken seriously, even though there's not a statutory obligation?
So there is a comprehensive suite of support there for staff with regards to well-being, be that through PAM Assist or any other of the means that we have. You are right, there is a statutory function here which comes through the Flexible Working Amendments Regulation. That is a statutory function for flexible working requests. We also look at things in terms of working flexibly, which could be more informal, localised based approaches that would be discussed during one-to-ones or constructive conversations meetings as part of that continual dialogue between a staff and manager. So there are plenty of opportunities for these to discuss, but there is that statutory instrument that could be relied upon as well, but we would expect that to be part of that continual dialogue.
Do you keep a record, so following up from how many flexible working requests have been turned down or accepted and what the context might be of that?
So I would expect that those would be retained on a local basis to ensure that there's, again, one of the tenets of these policies, especially work-life balance, is to ensure that we can still serve and have our communities and continue to provide services. So I would imagine that on a localised basis, we would keep a record of those formal flexible working requests that are in place to ensure that we are ensuring that continuity of service, but also to ensure as those requests come in, we can ensure that they are dealt with on their own individual merits as well.
Councillor Quinn.
Thanks. Are you able to kind of highlight any areas that have particularly changed since the last time? Or is this been a review? So is there any significant changes? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good point, Councillor Quinn. It is just part of our standard review for all HR policies. They go through a bi-yearly cycle where we do review those in conjunction with our trade unions as part of that working together process as well. In terms of the flexible working, there were updates that were made as a result of the Flexible Working Amendment Regulations, but that's the extent of it. As I say, these are existing policies, which we're then just going through that review cycle in order to refresh them.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Holden.
Thanks, Deputy Convener. I was trying to find the section. I'm sure you'll know which part it was, but it was the part around, you shouldn't assume that a decision in the affirmative for one applicant for flexible working would be approved if you applied for it, basically. So, but I take it that there will be a general. I wasn't surprised by that, but because I know there can always be differences. The applicants do the same thing, but there can be different circumstances behind the applicant, which would arrive at a different outcome. But is there a general assumption that where applicants make the same present the same case, basically, let me put it that way, and operate within the same environment, that the decisions will be consistent? And is there a risk in the council facing, some claims or whatever if we didn't maintain that consistency?
Thanks, Councillor Holden. So the procedure is quite clear that we consider the requests in the order that they come in, but that they are considered on their own merits, really. And that ensures the consistency with how we do that. We don't require managers to make any kind of value judgments as to who is most deserving of a flexible working request. Everyone is done on its merit, following the procedure that's set out there and taking into consideration the individual circumstances of the request. But again, in terms of mitigating risk, it's about balancing the needs of the services and our ability to deliver services effectively to our communities. That will be one of the main considerations when looking at those requests.
Thanks for that. But I take it the last point you're making, there would still be a requirement to kind of demonstrate that one, approval given and one refusal given. Although you could argue that, it's about the service, it's about how we maintain the service, but if there was an inconsistency and there's one person did exactly the same one, and then you've done exactly the same one after that, and you've been refused, but it's because we want to maintain the service could have been reduced by the approval of the first one. Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about? So each thing that's where they're taking an order. So each order is very important because it can have a knock-on impact in terms of likelihood or otherwise of an application being accepted further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, you're right with that, Councillor Holden. As the Chief Executive has just pointed out to me, on page 292 of the procedure, section 8, we do outline the reasons why a request might be refused. So again, that takes into consideration that additionality of trying to manage that risk with looking at those requests and when they come in.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Forson, Ellen, do you want to just move the work-life balance flexible working policy first?
Really, I'd rather do them both together, so can not just.
Right, okay. We'll do that. It's just like for two different policies, but absolutely move them together, that'd be grand.
Okay, well, I'm happy to move the report which brings forward refreshed procedures.
Yeah.
And they reflect the Council's ongoing commitment to supporting staff wellbeing, modern working practices and an inclusive workplace culture. The updated work-life balance and flexible working policies clearly align with current legislative provisions and best practice, reflecting modern approaches to working patterns and locations. They support increased flexibility while ensuring service delivery remains effective, a balance that benefits staff morale and operational performance. The policies recognise that greater flexibility can help improve productivity, reduce absenteeism and support staff wellbeing. The modernised approach helps position Clackmannanshire Council as a progressive employer that values staff wellbeing and recognises the diverse needs of its workforce. The revised carers policy and procedure strengthens support for colleagues with caring responsibilities by setting out clear guidance and entitlements. And I think it's important because that we do know the demographic of our employees means that many will have caring responsibilities, not just for children, but for older relatives moving forward. The policy acknowledges the additional demands placed on employees who are also carers and promotes a workplace culture that values and supports them. Supporting carers helps to retain experienced staff, improves wellbeing again, and reflects their values of fairness and opportunity. Both of the policies were developed collaboratively through regular engagement with trade union colleagues, management and HR representatives. And importantly, the associated quality impact assessments received no adverse comments, demonstrating that the Council's commitment to fair and inclusive policy development. So these policies contribute directly to our corporate priorities by promoting fair opportunities, supporting staff to achieve their full potential, and strengthening organisational resilience and culture. So in summary, I'm pleased to see these positive policy developments which support our workforce, promote modern and inclusive working practices, and reflect the collaborative working between HR management and trade unions. So I move that we agree the refreshed policies and note their quality impact assessments for both.
Wendy, do you want to address both papers, and I'll come back to questions on the carers policy?
Thank you, Vice Convener. Yeah, I'm pleased to second this motion. These revised policies represent a positive and necessary step in supporting a modern, flexible and inclusive workforce. The updated work-life balance and flexible working policy reflects both legislative changes in the way our services are evolving, ensuring staff have clearer, fairer routes to flexibility while maintaining service standards. The strengthened carers policy is equally important, recognising the pressures faced by employees with caring responsibilities and offering practical support that will make a real difference. It is reassuring that both these policies were developed collaboratively with trade union colleagues and received full agreement at policy group and tripartite. I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Wendy. As I said, a bit rusty at this, but I'd like to go back to the question. If there's anybody got any questions on the carers policy, please. Ginny, Councillor Rennie.
Yeah, and apologies because I'm going with the joy of AI on this one because I had something in the recesses of my brain, but it says in point 7.2 there's no statutory right to carers leave, but the council will allow employees with 26 weeks service the right to fresh time off. I thought there was something in statute where And what AI is telling me is, yes, carers leave is now a statutory right in the UK, established by the Carers Leave Act 2023, giving eligible employees up to 1 week of unpaid leave per year from April the 6th, 2024, to provide or arrange care for a dependent with a long-term condition. So anyway, I'll not read the whole thing out, but is it not the case that there are some statutory and legal rights to carers leave? Oh, sorry.
Councillor, could you just confirm what section you were looking at, please?
So 7.2, there is no statutory right to carers leave, but the council will allow employees to 26 weeks service, and it's in page 326 at the top.
Page 6.
I see that without having to go back and have a look at that myself. It's something I would need to look into, but I'm happy to confirm that for you. What I will say is that it is a generous package when it comes to carers leave that is provided for within the policy. So we have 3 days emergency paid leave, 5 days paid carers leave for critical illness, and up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave as well. And so the provisions are there to support carers where we need to, which is what the policy is intended to do. But I am happy to go back and have a look into the legislative basis, as you say, and confirm for you.
Yeah, I just was thinking it might be wise to take that sentence out if it's not correct. Yeah.
Any further questions on the carers policy?
Border. I think the question was asked earlier around decisions and stuff. We're required to make a decision on this today. I would suggest that you wouldn't really be able to approve a document like that while there was any debate around its legality or legality of a statement. And if it could be looked at maybe over the course of 10, 15 minutes, maybe that might be a wise way to proceed. I'm just conscious that we might get ourselves into some bother for approving a document like that. This is a factually an accurate statement of such magnitude within it. So.
I'm content to do that. I know the wonders of AI, it can sometimes hallucinate facts as well. So I think you're absolutely right, Councillor Holden. I'm happy to take that. Yeah, I'm happy to take that break and we can do a bit of research and just confirm for you.
Okay, so 10 minutes, that'd be okay for you? Yep. Okay, so we'll come back at, past. Is that okay with folks? Okay, thank you.
It's right now. It's